Welcome, everybody, to Hope Sparks Spotlights, where I zero in on inspiring people working in education innovation. I'd like you to meet Jennifer Kolari, author, speaker, podcast host, and therapist. Jennifer is one of the nation's leading parenting experts. Jennifer Kolari is a highly sought after international speaker and the founder of Connected Parenting, a child and family therapist with a busy practice based in San Diego and Toronto. You're going back and forth. Kolari's powerful parenting model is based on the neurobiology of love. I love that bit. Teaching parents how to use compassion and empathy as powerful medicine to transform challenging behaviors and build children's emotional resilience and emotional shock absorbers. That's I had to actually reduce your unbelievable stack
Aw.
of credentials and all the work you're doing. I will put all the links below. Jennifer, such a pleasure to see you, not in real
Thank
life, but
you.
almost. And
Almost in real life.
almost, yeah. I would like to start out with this idea of connected parenting.
Mhm.
I heard about you from a lot of people in my network of inspiring educators, and I hadn't quite landed on the idea of connected parenting until I met you. I wonder if you could share with the listeners, what is connected parenting and how did you come to this work?
So, connected parenting, we really work with parents to help them understand, first of all, how powerful love is, how healing it is,
Yeah.
and the neurobiology of it, and helping parents understand that through language, through conversation, through compassion and empathy, you can really change neurobiology. You can strengthen the immune system. You can speed up neural plasticity. You can build resilience. I mean, next to food and water, it's the most important thing you can do for yourself and for your children. And it really is the antidote to addiction as well, which I think is an important thing to add to the conversation. And I mean, the origin of connected parenting, well over 30 years ago now, I started working at a group home for street kids before I even did my MSW in psychology. And we were trained in this group home to be very, formal and don't get connected to the kids and keep the rules and be tough on them and be authoritative and don't connect with them because they're not there very long. And none of that made sense to me.
Mm.
So at night, when the makeup came off and the teddy bears came out and the jammies went on and they turned back into babies, I couldn't just close the door. So I'd sit on their beds and I'd sing them lullabies and I'd read them bedtime stories. And, they would cry. I would leave the room and cry because I thought these poor kids, they were 11 to 16 years old, first of all deeply traumatized, sexual abuse, all kind. Anyway, that's a whole story in and of itself. But what I found was the next day when it was time for me to get those really tough kids to do what I needed them to do, they were much more likely to do it for me. So that connection really fostered healthy compliance, not compliance because I'm afraid of you, but healthy compliance. And that started me on my journey. What is this? I want to know everything about it. I want to learn everything that I can about connection and compassion and love and the power of it. And that's how connected parenting came to be.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it's amazing how foundational love is in our human experience and how often it
Mhm.
gets left to the sort of periphery of like not a
Yeah.
need, but it's a nice to
Yeah.
have, which is, I feel,
Yeah.
to be the opposite. I came across
100%.
your concept of mirroring, or maybe it is just a general concept, and I thought that would be a
Mhm.
really great place to start as a
Sure.
practical example for parents and educators.
Yes. Yeah. And that's sort of the pillar technique in connected parenting. Now, it's not my technique. Mirroring, in the sense that I teach it, is based on Heinz Kohut's work. And he was a very well known self psychologist many, many years ago. It's an incredible practice. I've taken mirroring and I've kind of put my own um, kind of recipe to it and flavor to it, the way that I like to do it. And I've broken it down in a way to teach it to people because I mean, self psychology is an amazing field of psychology to study, but it's very dense and it's very complex, and you need a glass of water and a Tylenol to get through it. And so, and it's wonderful, but I kind of distilled it into what I call the calm technique. So this is the ability to really be present and really listen with your heart.
Hmm.
And it's not easy to do. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but it is incredibly powerful.
And can you tell me, can you give parents and
Sure.
educators a sort of a tangible example so that they can kind of visualize it?
Course. Of course. So, and I'll break it down first, and I'll give you an example. So, there's four things you're going to do when you're going to deeply listen to another person. And this is not just kids and parenting. This is spouse, nasty neighbor, in-laws, everybody. This is anyone. And so what you're going to do first is you're going to connect. So you're going to take your agenda, whatever that is, and you're going to start from a position of I need to understand instead of I need to be understood. And
Mhm.
just that alone will change the way the conversation is. And obviously put your phone down and like really use your body and your facial expressions to tell that person, whoever it is, that you are present and you are listening and you want to understand them. The next letter is A. So this is the affect matching. So this is where the look on your face really needs to match the look on their face. It can't be exact because that's weird, but
Mhm.
you have to be mirroring back that you're really on the same channel as they are. So I give an example. If you had a little, I don't know, little 6-year-old or something, and he said, I love Jillian and I was going to ask her to marry me, but she's going to marry Josh. Like it's cute and you smile, right? But when we smile like that, if our little one is feeling very devastated that he
Right.
will no longer have Jillian for his wife, that is not a neurological match, and that's going to cause some confusion, and it may cause an escalation in behavior.
Huh.
Or when your child is sad and you get frustrated because we've been through this 50 times, you're going to have like a mismatch neurologically. So that match is really important. The A is also important for taking your agenda and parking it. You get to bring it back. I always tell the parents I work with, you're not really a parent. You're actually a substitute frontal lobe. That's what you are, right? Your job is to do the inhibiting, the organizing, the prioritizing, the shifting attention, all of that stuff, which is why parenting is so challenging. But you just have to really, in that moment, take your agenda out.
Mhm.
The third thing you're going to do is the L. This is the listening. So this is where you're going to choose your words. You can paraphrase, you can clarify, you can summarize, or you can wonder out loud. And I'll go through an example in a moment. But when you've kind of pulled that all together with the affect, trying to tune into that channel,
Mm.
you'll get to the M, which is a wonderful mirroring moment. And when you have that moment, you'll feel it literally in your heart
Mm.
because oxytocin, opiates, and natural endorphins release. And those are beautiful biochemicals that soothe the brain. Oxytocin, in particular, which we think of, for labor, breastfeeding,
Yeah.
but it's also known as the tend and befriend hormone. It's also known as the love drug. It's very, very protective. It's a cortisol blocker, so it inhibits cortisol, which is the
Mhm.
hormone that makes us stressed out and anxious. It speeds up neuroplasticity, so it makes you learn better and remember better. It strengthens the immune system. It's free. You don't need a prescription. You don't run out of it. And the best part of all is your brain gets all of those same benefits
Mhm.
just by participating in a really genuine way based in love in that conversation.
That
Do you have any
sounds
questions? Or
like incredible recipe in contrast to some escalation that you would otherwise see if you're not doing that.
absolutely. It's kind of like having a superpower, honestly. When you kind of pull this into your awareness and really, it's much more of a philosophy and less of a technique because it really has to be genuine.
Mhm.
But when you get good at this, honestly, you feel like you're just walking around with a little superpower. Like conflicts just don't scare you so much anymore. You immediately know how to reach someone. So it's interesting that you talked about escalation because when you're able to speak to someone that way, you have what's called an oxytocin based response.
Mhm.
You switch it to an oxytocin based response instead of an adrenaline based response. An
Which
adrenaline based
affects our
response puts
nervous
you right
system.
into, yeah,
Right.
throws you right into fight or flight. The person you're talking to goes into fight or flight. You go into fight or flight. And if you're a parent, you recognize that, and then later you're like, oh, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to yell anymore. And then the next morning you're right back in it. So it's hard to control. Parenting is not easy, but it's like a superpower, honestly, that has amazing benefits.
I would totally agree. And right before we hopped on, we talked a little bit about the dysregulation that I'm noting in the world of education and also with fellow parents. The dysregulation after the pandemic, after all the turbulent few years we've been through, I would think that your working connected parenting and even this example of mirroring is so regulating as opposed to coping. Could you speak
So
about
much so.
this as a
Yeah.
trend? Are you noticing
Yeah.
dysregulation happening?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was seeing it anyway prior to the
Right.
pandemic for sure. And I would say after, much more. I mean, the kids after the pandemic are not the same kids that went in. They're just, and it's not just the pandemic. There's so many things going on in the world. There's social media. There's parents in general are super anxious, and anxiety is contagious. So I think a lot of people in general are having trouble with regulation, and we're not great in our culture at feeling our feelings. We like to distract and buy things or drink things or smoke things or do anything or blame other people. We do everything we can to not feel. And as parents, it's very hard to watch your kids struggle, but teaching your children to feel their feelings, to actually um, not just regulate their feelings, but understand that feelings are information and to metabolize the feelings and process the feelings. That's emotional literacy. But in order to help our kids do that, we have to do that ourselves. So, and
Yeah,
that's not always so easy, but it's the greatest gift you can give your child.
it is. And in my work supporting educators, I really am so thrilled to find people like you who are embodying this connection and these superpowers that are free for the most part. If we train ourselves up with this emotional literacy, I'm just imagining what that will do in learning settings and families all over the world. So, Jennifer, how can people find you? How can they work with you?
So, oh, it's a great question. So they can go to connectedparenting.com. Everything's there. So we have a number of different services to help parents, people on their parenting journey. So we have a whole team. We have 11 of us that are connected parenting therapists and connected parenting coaches that will help you not just understand the calm technique and how to use that, but help your kids with meaningful consequences. And it's just a wonderful parenting tool. So we have therapists that are on our team that can do that. We have online courses for families if you don't have the time or you can't afford a individual therapist, your insurance doesn't cover it. We have online courses for families where I, offer people these modules. You can walk through the whole program. One of those, I do live coaching calls with people, and it's amazing because there's people from literally all over the world. It's so exciting and
Amazing.
so much fun.
Are those the
Yep,
Friday
it's
ones?
fantastic. That's the village. That's different. The village is and also has people from all over the world. That's a smaller group where you work in a smaller group with a connected parenting coach or a therapist. And
Yeah,
parents are also helping each other. They're supporting each other. They're getting parenting advice, and they're also practicing that calm technique, which sounds easy, but it takes quite a bit of practice.
right.
And then my books are out there, and then my podcast. I've got the Connected Parenting podcast where I really share a lot with families. I make sure to put all kinds of usable, practical, free content out there for people. Then I also have my mental health comedy podcast, which is a lot of fun, which I co-host with Ed Krasnick, who's a comedian. We interview comedians and well-known entertainers and just talking about mental health. And that's very strategy based. Like we teach you, we really practice strategies in that show, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. You weave in comedy as well. We need it.
Yes,
Along with
you
the
do.
we need laughter and we need that kind of connection.
You gotta laugh. Yeah, it's
Oh,
true.
Jennifer, so this is a big question for you, but I'm sure you've got some things top of mind. But before we leave, are there, as I work with parents and I work with educators all over the world, what would you share um, as a reminder for parents and educators right now, right now?
Right now. So I think it would be to really tap into love. And without it sounding corny, this is the truth of it. Human beings only have two emotions. We're not that complicated.
Mm,
Love and fear. So
mhm.
anger and yelling and jealousy and cheating and lying and all that, that's all fear-based. It's all fear-based. And when you're in a state of fear, it causes the other person to understand and relate to the fact that you're in a state of fear. And so when you can parent or talk to anyone from a place of love, which means grounding yourself, trying to understand what the person is talking about before being understood, really find that sort of anchor, it will change everything. It will change every conversation you have. It'll change conversations you have with your own children, and it will give you this kind of inner confidence to really approach the world in the most beautiful way.
Grounding in love with Jennifer. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing,
You.
and I look forward to connecting more people with your work.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.